Hi. It's been a great morning so far, hasn't it? Really get pumped when people take that step of declaring their allegiance to Jesus in baptism. It's just a real special day. And we're so glad that you're here. So glad that you're wrapping up your summer with us this morning. So my name is Ken. I'm a teaching pastor at Creekside, and I want to extend an invitation, a welcome to our people who are watching online all around the world, and those who are in Kitchener, and those obviously who are in our main campus in Waterloo. We are just really fired up that you're here. And today, what I'm going to do is I want to talk about the afterlife. I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about the hereafter. I want to talk about heaven. Anybody up for talking about heaven? Because that's what we're going to do this morning. Talking about this place called heaven. Now, when you talk to people about heaven, Christians even, it's really, some of their ideas about heaven are just kind of odd, okay? So I don't know if you ever thought about it, but if you hear, what is it like there? I mean, there's all kinds of thinking around what it's like there. What is it going to be like? And a lot of people think about heaven, they think about, it's just like one big city, okay? And there's like streets that are, interlocking stones made of gold and the pearl gates and so on and so forth. And that's really what it's like, and that's really what all that it's like. There's a couple of trees, but there are no birds, there are no animals, there's nothing like that, just angels and people and gold and pearls. And that's what they're thinking about it. And that kind of view of heaven, I want to tell you, is not really accurate, but it causes a lot of people to ask questions. So people will ask me, well, like, is my dog going to get to heaven? Is my cat going to get to heaven? And I'll say to people, well, I'm not sure about your particular dog, but I do believe that there are going to be dogs in heaven, but there aren't going to be any cats. So, what can I say? I don't make up the rules, okay? That's just the way it goes. So people want to know, what is it like there? And we get all kind of weird ideas about that. The other thing is, what do we do there? Like, what do we do in heaven? And it's weird what we think about then, too. It's like we're going to grow these wings, right? And we got these white chiffon outfits that we float on clouds while we're eating bagels covered with Philadelphia cream cheese, playing on a harp. Like, really? Is that what it's going to be like? Like, honestly? Or some people think heaven's going to be like one gigantic, long worship service. Like, forever we're in a worship service like this. And I got to tell you, I love worship services. Some of them. But the idea that we would do this forever and ever and ever, just do a worship service, while I love the idea that we're going to see God in whole new ways and celebrate Him and adore Him, and it's going to be awesome and amazing, I think there's a lot more things that we do besides worship services, okay? And some people have this idea, what do we do there? That they talk about their loved ones who have gone on before them, and they'll say things like, Grandpa is looking down from heaven on us. And I always think, I hope not. I don't want my mom and dad looking at me all the time. I mean, I love them, and they've seen me all my life, you know what I'm saying? And I'm just happy for there to be like a little bit of space there. I want my privacy, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of interesting kinds of comments or things that people have when they think about heaven. And getting it right is kind of important. And this morning I thought we'd kind of see if we can at least help get it a little bit righter than maybe some of us have thought of it before. And to do that, I want to go to a passage in the Bible, Romans chapter 8. You got a Bible, you got a digital device, go to Romans chapter 8. If you got a pen, you're going to see some highlighted stuff on the screen. You may want to circle and underline so that when you go back to this passage, these sentences, you'll be able to understand it a little more clearly. What Paul's going to do, the Apostle Paul right here in Romans chapter 8, is he's going to talk about changes. He's going to talk about 6 changes. We're going to look at those really quickly. 6 changes that are going to happen when heaven shows up. 6 changes that are going to make it different. Because you know that heaven is like and unlike where we live now. It's going to be like we live in a lot of ways, except it's going to be unlike it in a lot of ways. And sometimes what the unlike is like is going to be so unlike the like that it's going to be hard for us to understand the like or the unlike or whatever it is I'm talking about, okay? So you understand that? But I want to show you that the change, he's going to say, here are some changes that are going to happen. And you may have read these verses before and not picked up on this. I think you're going to go, whoa, look what he's saying. These are 6 radical changes that are going to take place. You start at verse 18. Here's what he says. I've wrestled with it, I've considered that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. He's talking about the afterlife now. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. You'll notice he says right away, there is this glory that will be revealed in us. Now, the word glory is going to show up a number of times in this passage and in other passages in the Bible when Paul talks about eternity. It's almost like a substitute word for heaven. He'll talk about the glory. It means the beauty and the splendor and the majesty. It's a hard word actually to define, but all of us understand it's way better. It's up there. It's majestic. It's awesome. The glory that would be revealed, he says, or made known, or show up, or blossom. But notice where it shows up. It shows up where? In us. Not around us, not before us, not behind us, not above us, not below us. Yes, it will be glorious there. But what he's pointing out is that if you are a follower of Jesus, there is a glory that's going to be revealed or will suddenly be seen, will blossom out of you, in you. It's in you. When we think about heaven, a lot of times we're thinking about what is the place like. And what Paul is doing here is he's saying there's going to be a change in us. And this change will be revealed, and it is glorious. You notice the second thing that he says here, the children of God are going to be revealed. He's saying to us that when it comes to heaven, everybody there is a believer in God, a follower of Jesus, and you're going to see them all. You're going to see all of them. All the way back from Abraham and before him, all the way through in terms of time, you're going to recognize and see every single person before me, during this time in which I'm alive, and after my time that are going to be there. They're going to be revealed. They're going to be made known. You will see them all there. Everybody is going to be a child of God in heaven. That's what he's saying to us. If you go to verses 20 and 21, he writes, "For the creation was subjected to frustration." There's an interesting thing that he's doing here. He's talking about all of creation, talking about us, yes, but he's talking about trees and plants and planets and flowers and fish and so on. Creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice. It didn't choose to be put in this posture of being frustrated, but by the will of the one who subjected it, that is, according to God's will, nature ended up being put in this posture of frustration because of sin. It paid a penalty too, in hope that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. Here's what he tells us also is going to happen. Creation itself, all of creation, will be liberated from its bondage to decay. Right now, creation is in bondage to this cycle: birth, decay, death. Birth, decay, and death. And you see it all the time. You watch it all the time. It doesn't matter if it's trees or fish or birds or people or insects. It doesn't matter. You've seen it. You've watched it over and over and over again. When it comes to death, we know well what death is like. And he's saying this is a bondage that creation is in right now. And what he's going to do is he's going to liberate it from me. He's going to, ultimately in the afterlife, creation is liberated from this experience, this bondage. It's a beautiful, beautiful picture. Don't you want to be free? Don't you want to experience liberation? Well, what he's saying happens here is when sin is gone, liberty comes into our lives. And I would argue that people who disobey God, who live outside the boundaries of God's will, are living in bondage, okay? They're living in bondage. They may not realize it right now, but that is what it is like. And when you step underneath the will of God, even though sometimes God defines his lines in different ways, you're actually living a free life. You're living in freedom there and then. This is what's going to happen. Creation itself. So get this. If he's saying creation will experience this, guess what heaven's going to be like? It's going to be creation liberated from its bondage. Like and unlike. Okay, watch what else he says. And brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. So he's saying that creation itself will be brought into this freedom, this place of freedom that we're going to have. It's going to join us. And the glory of what it means to be a child of God, the glory of what it means to belong to the Father, the glory of what it means for him to be in his fullness our Father, and we his children. This is what the afterlife, this is what heaven is going to be like. You picking up on the direction Paul's going here? Is there some new stuff maybe you're learning about heaven? Whoa, it's about creation? Really? It's going to be like and unlike what it is now? Watch this, verses 22 and 23. We know that the whole creation has been groaning in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. See what he's doing? He's taking creation and he's personifying all of it. Whether it's planets, inanimate and animate, whatever it may be, he's saying it's like it's in childbirth. It's like it's groaning. It's like it's anticipating or waiting for that moment when birth will take place, the birth of the new heavens and the new earth. Not only so does he say this about creation, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit. When he's talking about the first fruits of the Spirit, he's saying that if you're a child of God and you put your faith in Jesus, you know that the Holy Spirit comes in you, right? And what he does inside of us is he tries to grow what's called the fruit of the Spirit, which is like peace and joy and gentleness and kindness and self-control. He's trying to grow that in our lives. If we'll walk with him, he'll do that, and spiritual gifts and so on, and he wants to guide us. That is in there in some ways, in a very small way. In some ways, it's a big thing. It does great things, but he's saying we've got the first fruits of the Spirit. We groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies. The day is coming when this fruit will show up in big, big ways. And you'll notice he says this, our adoption to sonship, when we step into the afterlife, the fullness of being adopted into sonship will be our experience. And maybe you ladies are saying, I have to become a son? No, that's not what he's saying. He's writing to the Romans, okay? This is a book called Romans. He's writing to the people who live in Rome. He's writing to a group of people who in their culture have this interesting thing that they do. A wealthy man who has not been able to have any children, or doesn't like the maturity of the children he has, will go and find a young man. He might find him anywhere. It doesn't matter what his lineage is. He will find that young man, and he will study that young man and learn about that young man, and then he will make a decision to adopt this young man and bring him into his family as an adult son. And what that means is that when this adoption takes place, on the death of this man who's done the adopting, this boy becomes full heir of everything that he has. And what is being stated here is that when we step into the afterlife, we are an heir, a full heir. Everything that Jesus owns, we own. We're a joint heir with him. We're all in that together. And the other thing that he says is the redemption of our bodies. Our bodies get redeemed or renovated or renewed. Anybody here for a new body? Some of you are raising your hands right away. Some of you are not there yet. You will one day if you live long enough. You'll go, this old thing, it's going towards decay, right? That's what happens to it, and you feel it. And don't ask me what the body's going to be like. Are you all going to look like you, Ken? It gets better than that, okay? I don't know what height you're going to be. I don't know what color of I don't understand all of that stuff, and really it doesn't really matter to me. I just know I'm going to get a new one. And it's going to be a great one. It's going to be an eternal one. It's going to be a glorious body. And it's just going to be an amazing, amazing thing. So Paul is coming along and he's saying, when you think of the afterlife, I want you to think of the changes. It's like, but unlike. It's so unlike, it's hard to wrap our heads around. It's just a totally different thing in that sense. And so what he wants to do then is say to us in the middle of all those verses we're looking at, he's really telling us, how do I want you to live? In light of what is going to happen, how should we live today, okay? If this is going to happen, how do we live today? You ready for this? Watch this. First of all, consider the glory of eternity. Consider the glory of eternity. Can you say that word consider with me? You ready? Consider. Consider. Now, when you consider, what are you doing? You're thinking about it. You're evaluating it. You're studying it. You're weighing it, comparing it. So here's what he says for us in verse 18. Paul's saying, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. He starts, as I've mentioned already, with this word consider. And when you think about the word consider, it would mean this: to evaluate, to weigh, to measure, to bring to bear all the elements, and then come to a conclusion. So here's what he's saying to us. I want you to consider, I want you to evaluate, I want you to weigh, I want you to measure your present suffering with what's going to happen hereafter, the glory of what's going to happen hereafter. I want you to consider it. I want you to wrestle with it. I want you to understand as much as you can about the hereafter. And I want you to, take a look at, the situation, the circumstance that you're in. I want you to consider that. In some sense, compare those. I think he said it will help you. Now, it's interesting because when he writes the verse, it may sound like what I just told you is wrong. He writes, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. But I want to say to you that in order for us to consider it, what he's really saying is, I compared them, and what I found out is that you can't compare them. You tracking with me here? I hope I actually mean what I just said. He's comparing them as best he can, and he's saying you can't compare them. In other words, they're so incredible, so amazing that it's like, but it's unlike. It's the same, but it's so different that if you're trying to compare the two, you really can't compare the two. And what he does here, he talks about our present sufferings, and what he's saying here to us is, I consider that our present sufferings, and I believe he's not just talking about the pain that the people he's writing to might be in, whether it be a relational pain or a physical pain or a mental pain or a loss of a job or whatever the situation might be. I think he's talking about all of the sufferings that we experience in our present time. Wars and famine and disease and earthquakes, all of the pain, all of the suffering inflicted, if you could take it all, this present suffering, and gather it all together, and you start to compare it with what the hereafter is about, you can't do that because it's so different. It's so much better. In fact, he says it's what? It's glorious. It's glorious. And it will be what? Revealed in us. This glory will be revealed in us. It's so much better than the struggles that we're going through. So much more wonderful than what we're experiencing. We cannot compare its intensity. He's saying that the beauty and wonder and spectacular intensity of the future, how much greater it is than what we have now. You can't compare the intensity. And the other thing that you cannot compare is its duration. This is present suffering. It's going to be eternal glory. You can't compare those. It's hard for us to wrap our minds around the fact that what it's all about, but he's saying it needs to be something that you engage your mind in, that you recognize that this is going to be different, that you consider it, that you wrestle through it, then you realize, oh, it's so much better than what I'm experiencing today. You could put it this way: the future promise is so much better than the present pain. And Paul talks about this in other places as well, where he writes, therefore we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away. There we go. This is good news this morning. Outwardly you're wasting away. Yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles. That's how he sees them. He calls it present suffering in chapter 8 of Romans. In 1 Corinthians 4, he calls it momentary troubles. And I want to say to you, he's not saying ignore them. He's not saying downplay them. He's not saying push them aside. It's not really that bad. No. It is bad. Okay? It is difficult. It is a hard thing, right? Our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that what? Far outweighs them all. It absolutely outweighs all of them. It's just incredible what it's doing. And here's what we go back to this verse. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. That's what he's saying to us. So right now he's saying, if you're aware of the struggles in your life, I want you to understand that the experience of the afterlife, the experience of heaven, is not worth comparing to your struggles. I'm not downplaying them. I'm not trying to ignore them. I know they're bad. I know it hurts. I know you're mourning. I understand that. Embrace it for the fullness of what it is. But understand that the glory is greater than that. In fact, the more that you embrace it, the more that you understand it, the more that you accept the pain and identify the pain and label the pain and live in the pain, I want to tell you, even then, the greater the glory is. He's trying to tell us that we need not to hide it or push it aside, but embrace it, and knowing that the glory of the afterlife is even better than that. Consider the glory of eternity. Then he says this, secondly, wait eagerly for the glory of eternity. I want you to read that one with me. Can you read it? Wait eagerly for the glory of eternity. So here's what he writes. Go back to Romans chapter 8. He writes this: the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. You notice what he says? Waits in what kind of expectation? Eager expectation. It goes on a little bit later. He writes, not only so, but we ourselves who have the first fruits of the Spirit groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption, the redemption of our bodies. Wait eagerly. We don't usually say that, do we? We'll say something like, wait, what? Patiently. Wait patiently. You make the phone call and you get the automated answer machine, right, on whatever the business is or the government or whatever you're calling. And they'll say something like, well, the line is really busy and we have a long lineup of people. It seems like it's always a long line. We're extra busy, you know what I'm saying? And so we'd ask you just to wait eagerly. They don't say that, right? In fact, they play music to try and get you to wait patiently because they know you're just about to hammer your cell phone somewhere, right? So they do that. And when you're on your way to the cottage and the kids are saying, are we there yet? Are we there yet? You don't turn around and say, wait eagerly. It's the last thing you say, right? You say something like, we're going to get there. It's going to take like a long time. We used to tell our kids, like, it's going to take like 3 days. Like a long time, Oh, we got here in this hurry. Yeah, we did, guys, Actually, we didn't do that. That's lying. Anyway, although it's not a bad idea. So what happens, we don't say it that way. Well, what do we say? We say wait patiently because waiting patiently is what we want people to do. Wait eagerly. So it was Mother's Day. This was a long, long time ago, and we took our 5 kids. I think they were around like 12 and 10 and 8 and 6 and 4. I could always remember like when they were every other year, when their birthdays lined up. So let's say it was that way. It was Mother's Day, and we went to this Chinese buffet restaurant. I don't think the place exists anymore, but we went there on Mother's Day. I was going to do my Mother's Day thing and honor Carol as our mom, and as a mom, great mom, and we got there, and like everybody else on the planet was lined up at this restaurant too. And I didn't have any other backup plans, so I said, well, let's just like kind of, can we stand here? It'll be okay. We waited for over an hour, okay? So you have to imagine we've got these 5 kids there, and I'm trying to get them to wait patiently, right, along with all the other people. And so I'm telling them, kind of stuff. You guys will just hang on here. It's going to be kind of cool. It's going to be great. Really what I was saying to them in the conversation in the long lineup that slowly, snail's pace, meandered its way into the restaurant, what I was saying to them was wait eagerly. I was telling them it was going to be like really good. I was telling them if you hang on here, you're going to go, wow, Dad, that was awesome. And we didn't take our kids out very often. 7 of us in public was not a good thing, but 5 kids is expensive, so we didn't go very often, like this was like, woo, special thing. So, wow, this is great, this is cool, this is awesome, that's what I was trying to get them to see that. So we finally, Taylor, group of 7, and that's us, in we go. We sit around the tables, and I prayed for the food, and I thank God for Carol, great mom that she is. And then I said to the kids, okay, guys, here's the deal. This is called a buffet. And what it basically means is you can eat as much as you want and anything that you want. Here's the deal. You can eat anything that you want. I don't care what you eat. You just want to eat ice cream? Eat ice cream. You just want to eat French fries? Eat French fries. You don't have to eat anything healthy. It doesn't matter. Just go and have fun. And I remember one of our guys, his eyes got big, the veins on his neck stood out. Whoa, this is great. And off he went. And, we had to take him to the hospital afterwards and everything, but that's another... No, he didn't. What I was telling him to do was what? Wait. How? Wait eagerly. And what is Paul doing here when he talks about the afterlife? He's saying, man, wait eagerly. You need to be pumped and excited and thrilled. Not that you're going to abandon planet Earth. You got to take care of it. I want you to do that. But there is this cool, amazing, awesome thing that's going to happen. Wait eagerly for it. I read this story about an American who, at 12 years of age, became blind. His name was William Dyke. William Dyke went over to England to work on his master's degree. And when he was at school in England, he met and fell in love with a British admiral's daughter, of all things. They fell in love and they decided to get married. And when he went to ask for her hand, in that very British way, to the admiral said, yes, you can marry my daughter if you agree to one thing. But here's one thing I would like you to do. I'd like you to get surgery on your eyes. There's a new surgery. I think it can help. And I believe, it's a little risky, but I'd love for you to do it. And the young man thought about it for a little while, and he said to his future father-in-law, I will do it, but I'd like it to be done in such a way that the first person who I see would be my bride. So this is what they decided to do. They had the surgery, and they thought it went successfully. And the wedding day came. He still has the bandages around his eyes, and they brought him to the front of the church to stand there. And then the admiral brought his daughter up to the front. They unraveled the gauze around his eyes, and the first person he saw was her. And he said, you are more beautiful than I thought, which is absolutely the right thing to say at that moment. You know what I'm saying? Like, not a lot of options there. They could go downhill if you say something else. So that's what he does. And I can imagine as he's standing there waiting for that moment, he's waiting how? He's waiting eagerly, right? There's this eagerness that he has. Creation waits eagerly. It's waiting. Is that cool? It's waiting eagerly. Christians wait eagerly. Are you waiting eagerly for heaven? I'm going to ask the worship team to come out one more time. We're going to wrap it up with a song that I think fits right in here. But while they're coming, I want to show another slide up here. Do you think that the caterpillar knows that one day it's going to become a butterfly? You think it does? Would it be kind of cool if it did? That little tiny caterpillar brain that's creeping and crawling on the leaves and eating what it can eat and just, has no idea about height and no idea about all the other elements and kind of dodges the birds. It's kind of ugly, isn't it, right there with all that's going on? Does it know that one day, it's going to be transformed into this absolutely amazing thing? That it's going to fly on the wings of the wind? That it will automatically know to migrate hundreds, thousands of miles? Does it understand that? Nobody wants to hold one of these, but aren't we impressed? Don't we go to places where they actually gather these little guys and put them into a building and the butterflies land on us? We want them to land on us. There's something really incredibly special about a butterfly, right? And I wonder sometimes, and I've got no biblical truth for this, no biblical support for this, but I wonder if God doesn't do this to remind us, hey, you think heaven's not going to happen? You think the afterlife is not what I'm saying it's going to be? Did you ever predict that this was going to happen? Because I want to tell you what is going to happen in the afterlife is way, way better than that. Way, way better. I consider this present suffering, man, it's nothing compared to what we're going to experience. And I wonder if this isn't a reminder again to you and to me, those of us who are followers of Jesus, that this is what a picture of what God is going to do on that day. It's going to be absolutely incredible. It really is. And I think we need to be what? Comparing? Yeah. It's going to be greater than this pain. I can handle the pain because I know there's going to be this wonderful, wonderful promise of something spectacular and wonderful. And you know what else? I'm going to wait eagerly. I'm going to remind myself every day that this is going to be a glorious experience that is going to be a vein sticker, outer eye opener, wonderful, amazing experience for me. Will you bow your heads, please, at this moment? Let's pray. Heavenly Father, I thank you today for Jesus, for his death, his burial, his resurrection, the declaration of that in our baptisms. And I thank you, Heavenly Father, for this teaching that Paul gives us, that there is coming a day, and we are eagerly waiting it. There's coming a day. We're looking right now, we're considering, we're comparing, and we're excited that it's so unlike what we're experiencing now that we can embrace it in a way that will lift us up, that the glory will be in us, it will be revealed, it will be wonderful, and we thank you for that. You love us, you care for us, it's awesome. I pray for people who are here who are not followers of Jesus. They came to applaud and cheer on those being baptized. Maybe others who've been here for a while haven't made that decision to trust in you, and I pray this morning they would put their faith in Jesus Christ as their personal sin forgiver and life leader, that they would embrace his salvation because you love them and you care for them. And I thank you for that and pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.